The mental stack, how law, language, money, and math shape our world. Civilization is not simply an arrangement of cities, markets, and machines. It is the product of shared mental architectures that allow humans to coordinate, cooperate, and endure across generations. These architectures are not visible in skylines or GDP reports. They exist in abstractions of the human mind, laws written, words spoken, value exchanged, and equations solved. At the heart of this hidden infrastructure is what we'll call the mental stack, a layered model of society's most fundamental coordination protocols. These protocols, law, language, money, and mathematics, enable human beings to transcend biology and build scalable systems of meaning, trust, and governance. But these protocols do not arise from nothing. They are all extensions of a deeper substrate, science and logic, the universal architecture of reason and understanding. Without this substrate, no protocol can remain coherent. When societies forget this foundation, collapse follows, not just materially, but conceptually. To the substrate, science and logic. Before humans built laws, currencies, or alphabets, they observed the world. Pattern recognition, deduction, experimentation, these were the earliest roots of science. Logic gave structure to thought, science gave method to discovery. Together, they form the substrate of the mental stack. Importantly, science is not a protocol. It is the bedrock. It is not one protocol among many, but rather the condition of possibility for all protocols. You cannot have consistent law without internal logic. You cannot have functional language without semantic rules. You cannot have trustworthy money without rational valuation. And mathematics is science made symbolic. Science and logic do not prescribe how we must coordinate, but they determine what is coherent. If a protocol violates the substrate, if money ignores scarcity, or law abandons internal consistency, it begins to collapse. 3. The four core protocols. A. Law, protocol of constraint and governance. Law is the formalization of constraint. It governs what is permissible, punishable, and protected. Law allows for the resolution of conflict without resorting to violence, creating an abstract layer of trust between strangers, institutions, and generations. Laws began as tribal customs, but evolved into religious codes, civic statutes, and constitutional frameworks. Every legal system encodes some vision of justice, authority, and social order. But without logic and language, law is arbitrary and incomprehensible. Law binds behavior not just in the present, but across time. Contracts, courts, and constitutions are temporal chains made from symbols and rules, binding the past to the future through the present moment of enforcement. B. Language, protocol of meaning and communication. Language is humanity's most powerful invention. It is the protocol of shared meaning, enabling the transmission of thought across minds and across time. Every other protocol in the mental stack depends on language. There is no law without language, no contract, no treaty, no constitution, no programming, no ledger. Language allows us to abstract, metaphorize, and systematize reality. It is the first medium in which civilization becomes thinkable. And because it is recursive, language about language is possible. It can evolve with precision, grammar, rhetoric, dialectic, and logic. Language is also social memory. It encodes myth, history, taboo, and aspiration. The health of a society can often be measured by the health of its language. When it becomes hollow, distorted, or euphemized, clarity dies and trust erodes. See money, protocol of value coordination. Money is the most scalable trust mechanism humans have ever devised. It allows people who do not know or understand one another to coordinate effort and allocate resources at global scale. But money is not value itself. It is a protocol for remembering value. Like language and law, it only works when enough people agree on its meaning. And like them, it depends on consistency. Money that can be printed infinitely or manipulated unilaterally violates the logical substrate and degrades into fiction. When the monetary protocol fails, societies regress. Trade becomes barter. Trust disappears. The most basic coordination, what something is worth, breaks down. D. Mathematics, protocol of structure and abstraction. Mathematics is not merely a tool of engineers or accountants. It is a universal language of structure and pattern. It allows us to symbolize logic, to formalize relationships, to predict the future from the past. Math is what enables timekeeping, computation, cryptography, and measurement. It is the most pure instantiation of science into symbolic form. Mathematics doesn't just describe the world, it allows us to build systems that work regardless of belief. In this way, math is the most brutally honest protocol. You cannot bribe it. You cannot euphemize your way around it. If you violate its logic, your bridges collapse, your software fails, your finances implode. Section 4, Derived Applications and Compound Systems with the Mental Stack Diagram. The four core protocols, law, language, money, and mathematics, do not operate in isolation. Like interoperable code libraries, they combine to form higher-order systems that underpin nearly every function of a modern civilization. These are the applications, visible expressions of the invisible stack. Contracts are created by combining law and language. A contract is one of the oldest and most potent constructs in human coordination. It is law made legible through language. Contracts allow humans to agree on future obligations, binding people across time and space through mutual trust, codified in symbols. When contract law is strong and language is clear, vast markets emerge. When either breaks through corruption, ambiguity, or illiteracy, commerce stagnates and trust collapses. Finance is created by combining money and mathematics. Finance is not just the circulation of money, it is the mathematical modeling of risk, time, and value. Compound interest, options pricing, insurance, arbitrage, all are manifestations of the money math fusion. At its best, finance enables massive productive coordination. At its worst, when math is used to obfuscate or money becomes untethered from logic, it becomes a mechanism for extraction, not creation. Programming is created by combining mathematics and language. Software is math made executable by language. Programming languages, unlike natural speech, must obey strict syntactic and logical rules. They transform structured instructions into machine behavior, enabling the entire digital age. This fusion gave birth to computation, automation, and artificial intelligence. Programming is now how we govern machines the way law governs people. Policy is created by combining law, mathematics, and language. Policy is society attempting to scale law through metrics and persuasion. It combines normative rules, law, empirical modeling, math, and public narrative, language. Done well, it aligns incentives and improves outcomes. Done poorly, it becomes incoherent, slogans and spreadsheets in conflict. Timekeeping is created by combining mathematics and observation. Though often overlooked, timekeeping is one of the most critical derived systems. Calendars, clocks, and timestamps synchronize human action. They enable debt, agriculture, logistics, and memory. But timekeeping isn't a standalone protocol. It is a mathematical application built atop the logic of recurrence and interval. Without it, coordination becomes impossible. The mental architecture stack, visual. To visualize this layered system, consider the mental architecture stack diagram below. Substrate, science logic. Protocols, law, language, money, mathematics. Applications, contracts, finance, programming, policy, timekeeping. This structure is not theoretical. It maps directly to civilizational function. And when one protocol is degraded, the failure cascades into applications and eventually institutions. For example, when money is untethered from mathematical and logical constraints, finance becomes a game of perception, not value. When language is hollowed by propaganda or euphemism, contracts become meaningless and policy loses legitimacy. When law is weaponized or inconsistent, trust in governance disappears. This content is brought to you by Bobby Gigs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Section 5, Civilization as a Mental Operating System. We often describe civilization in physical terms, roads, borders, skyscrapers, satellites, but the more essential infrastructure is mental, an invisible lattice of trust, meaning, and protocol. What really holds a civilization together is its shared mental code base. Just like an operating system manages resources and facilitates applications, the mental stack governs societal behavior, communication, economic flow, and structural integrity. When the protocols are coherent and aligned with the substrate, science logic, society functions predictably and can scale. When they drift, when money loses logic, when law contradicts itself, when language erodes, everything built on top becomes unstable. Civilization is not just a story we tell, it's a system we run. The strength of that system depends not on ideology or brute force, but on how, well, each protocol fulfills its function while remaining logically coherent and mutually compatible. Stack interdependence. These protocols reinforce and constrain one another. Money enables enforcement of law via fines, funding of institutions. Law shapes the rules around language, e.g., free speech, defamation. Math enforces rigor in finance, which feeds back into economic policy. Language encodes law, which governs money, whose value depends on math. The system becomes resilient when the protocols are in harmony. It becomes fragile when one protocol tries to dominate or decouple from the rest. A mental OS must be debuggable. Good code can be audited, traced, debugged. So must a civilization. When a financial system fails, is it a math error, a language manipulation, a legal loophole? When a population becomes polarized, is it a breakdown in shared language, a mistrust in law, a corrupted belief in money? Without a clear understanding of the mental stack, we can't even ask the right questions. With it, we gain diagnostic precision. Section 6, Fragility and Renewal. Every protocol, no matter how foundational, can drift, degrade, or be deliberately exploited. And when one pillar of the mental stack fails, its collapse radiates through the entire system. Failure modes by protocol. Law becomes arbitrary, selectively enforced, or contradictory. Trust in governance erodes. Contracts lose meaning. Violence reemerges as the fallback coordination mechanism. Language becomes ambiguous, politicized, or inflated with euphemism. Shared meaning collapses. Debate becomes impossible. Narrative dominates reason. Money becomes decoupled from scarcity, utility, or belief. Hyperinflation, wealth extraction, loss of economic coordination. People hoard goods or flee the system entirely. Mathematics becomes obfuscated, ignored, or used to deceive. Risk becomes opaque. Financial systems crash. Models lose predictive power. Each protocol, when abused or misunderstood, creates a civilization-wide bug. The society may still run, but it runs on debt, distortion, and delay. Eventually, it crashes. Civilizational collapse is not just a political failure. It's a stack trace error that starts deep in the mental architecture. Rebooting the stack. Recovery is possible, but only if you go back to the substrate. Return to logic. Re-anchor each protocol in internal consistency. If it cannot pass a logic test, it cannot govern. Return to science. Replace narrative with evidence. Rebuild policy on tested reality, not ideological wish casting. Refactor language. Remove euphemism and reestablish clarity. Semantic hygiene is civilizational hygiene. Refound money. Link value to scarcity, effort, or collateral. Make it honest again. Restore law. Codify justice, not power. Make it predictable, universal, and transparent. Retether math. Use it to illuminate, not obscure. Math should serve truth, not mask fraud. When civilizations decline, it's not because they've run out of resources. It's because they've forgotten how to think clearly, speak clearly, coordinate clearly, and govern clearly. Renewal is not revolution, it's refactoring the code. Conclusion: the invisible infrastructure that holds us together. We build cities with concrete and steel, but we build civilization with law, language, money, and math. These are not just tools, they are protocols of the mind, abstract yet enduring, fragile yet foundational. All rest on one substrate, science and logic. When we honor this foundation, the stack runs smoothly. When we ignore it, we drift toward incoherence. The mental stack is not just a theory. It is a lens for diagnosis, a map for renewal, and a test of legitimacy. Any institution that cannot maintain coherence across these protocols will eventually lose the trust that sustains it. If we are to build something lasting, scalable, and worthy of the name civilization, we must start here. Fix the stack, or fall with it.